Okay, so first of all, an issue that my opponent didn't even bring up at all during this debate is the issue of morality. The death penalty is immoral for any human being despite the circumstances. Brian Stevenson, professor of law at NYU School of Law, states that ultimately the moral question surrounding capital punishment in America has less to do with whether those convicted of violent crimes deserve to die than with whether state and federal governments deserve to kill those whom it has imprisoned. The legacy of racial apathy, racial bias, and ethnic discrimination is unavoidably evident in the administration of capital punishment in America. Death sentences are imposed in a criminal justice system that treats you better if you are rich and a guilty man than if you are poor and innocent. This is an immoral condition that makes rejecting the death penalty on moral grounds not only defensible but necessary for those who refuse to accept unequal or unjust administration of punishment. In civilized society, we reject the principle of literally doing to criminals what they do to our victims, what they said was the eye for eye argument. So the penalty for rape cannot be rape. For arson, it can't be burning down the arsonist's house. We should not, therefore, punish a murderer with death. Capital punishment is a barbaric remnant of uncivilized society. And second, our nation's most influential beings believe that the death penalty is immoral. Why is it that we will listen to and agree with the Pope on most other issues, but when the Pope speaks out against the death penalty, Americans won't listen? The Pope is one of the most influential beings in the world, and even he states it cannot be overemphasized that the right to life must be recognized at its fullness. He called upon governments to enact laws and public policies that take into account the high value of human being has at every moment of existence. Also, the death penalty abuses two of our most basic human rights. The first human right being that everyone has the right to live, and the second being that no one should be subject to torture. So everyone has the right to live. Human rights belong to all of us equally. An attack on these rights anywhere is an attack on us all. Human rights cannot be given or taken away no matter how terrible a crime. They are clearly a drawn line between what is right and wrong. Every individual facing the death penalty, no matter what they are accused of, are still human beings. They may have killed and tortured, they may have crossed the line, but do we want to stoop down to their level and join them by taking their lives away? Second, no one should be subject to torture. Not only is it physical torture by the different methods to die, but it's psychologically torturing the human being locked up for 10 to 20 years waiting on the execution date. One may fight that the death penalty is painless by the use of lethal substances, but that is not true at all. A study shows that as many as 4 of every 10 prisoners put to death in the United States might receive inadequate anesthesia, causing them to remain conscious and experience blistering pain during a lethal injection. Researchers in Florida and Virginia drew this conclusion after reviewing levels of anesthetic in the blood of 49 inmates after they were executed. It would be a cruel way to die, awake, paralyzed, unable to move, to breathe, while potassium burned through your veins. This could also lead to the death penalty being a cruel and unusual punishment, which violates our Constitution. So the death penalty is a cruel and unusual punishment in our Constitution. So in 2007, executions are on hold in over a dozen states, and botched executions have put the lethal injection process under increasingly scrutiny. In April 2005, the British Medical Journal of Researchers found serious flaws in how lethal injections were being administered, causing extreme suffering to the prisoners being executed. The report found that in 43 of the 49 executed, prisoners cited the anesthetic administered during the lethal injection was lower than required for surgery. In 43% of cases, drug level was consistent with an awareness. Also, the death penalty, it doesn't help the victims' families at all. It actually creates sympathy for the perpetrators of the crime. Criminals are usually looked down upon by society. People are disgusted by the vile and unconscionable acts they commit and feel tremendous sympathy for the victims of murder, rape, etc. However, the death penalty has a way of shifting sympathy away from the victims and to the criminals themselves. An excellent example of the execution a few years ago, former gangs, Tookie Williams. He was one of the original members of the notorious Crips gang, which has long legacy of robbery, assault, and murder. This man, who was convicted with overwhelming evidence of murder of 4 people, some of whom he shot in the back of and then laughed at the sounds they made as they died. This man never even took responsibility for the crimes or apologized to the victims. Victims had kids and spouses, but instead of sympathy for them, sympathy shifted towards Tookie. Candlelight vigils were held for him. Protests and media circus ensured trying to prevent the execution, which eventually took place 26 years after the crime itself. So it doesn't create sympathy for the families, it creates sympathy for the murderers. Also, It's a cruel and unusual punishment. It's inadequate in the legal system, and it does not deter from crime.
I'll be posting the